Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, we can see you now.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen now? The flyer?
Yeah, we can see the flyer now.
Okay. So people are joining. We will start in 2 minutes, 8:03, so that people can who are in lobby can be admitted.
Yeah, no worries in that.
So I think we can start the session. It's 8:03 and hello everyone. Good evening from India. I'm Shikha Singh, volunteering as Vice President Professional Development at PMI Mumbai chapter. I hold a B in Production Engineering from Mumbai University, Green Belt in Lean Six Sigma and PMP certified from PMI. Professionally, I am working at LRQA Inspection Services India LLP at Mumbai and having over 18 plus years of experience in operations of inspection services and right now handling global projects. So I welcome everyone for today's PM PITSTOP session, and total registrations for today's session is 160 plus and counting. So PM PitStop provides a platform where subject matter experts and project managers from many industries share their experiences and demonstrate the usage of various tools and techniques in the real world. And today's topic is elements of user stories. And today's speaker to present this topic is Mr. Premal Desai again. So we welcome him, and he's a passionate trainer, project management advisor, and process consultant. Premal holds a bachelor's degree in commerce and diploma in computers from University of Mumbai and IT certifications in the areas of project management, PMP and Prince2, service management, ITIL expert, IT governance, COBIT, enterprise architecture, TOGAF 9.1, and in software development certified Scrum Master. Premal has managed multiple projects for various international customers end to end and recently handled global pre-sales team for multi LOB involving ITS, BPO and RNA at Datamatics. Premal Desai is a result-oriented professional with close to 30 plus years of rich experience in IT strategy and operations requirements management, program and customer stakeholders management, improving processes and pre-sales activities. Premal has trained more than 2,550 plus IT professionals of various levels since 2009 on various subjects like ITIL, ITIL V3, Prince2, COBIT, Agile, Scrum, Lean, IT, PMP. Mentored many individuals in building career paths. So his LinkedIn profile link has been shared in chat box. Please connect with him and please post questions in the chat box and same will be answered at the end of the session by the speaker. So I request Premal to start his session, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shika, and a very good evening to you. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever, which part of the world you are. Let me share my video, and can you see my video? Yeah. And let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's coming along.
Can you see my PPT?
Yes, you can keep it a slideshow now. That will be better.
Can
Yes,
you
now
see?
it's better.
Now
Yes.
is better? Okay. So very good evening, good morning, good afternoon. And let's understand the elements of user stories. That's the topic of today's pit stop. And uh, let me give you a background for a second. We are going to have a 15 minutes context setting, around 35 minutes, 40 minutes on the main topic of elements of user stories, and followed by Q&A session. And let me give you a background. Around 15 years back, uh, I would say, yeah, 15 years back, when I moved from a typical project or a production support project to agile world, and the first 6 8 months were very very difficult for me. I got a very nasty email. I still recollect. I'm putting the context because of some reason, and I got a very nasty email from my customer that you get lost, you don't know agile, you don't know agile scrum. And that opened my eyes, and I started reading a lot, started practicing a lot, understanding the subject, and went into the deep of the subject. It's not that I know everything on agile scrum or I know everything on user stories, but I happen to learn the things in a hard way with the sometimes the nasty words makes you more read more professionally thorough. That's the reason why I'm giving you this background. Sometimes those words are golden words, so never take the words of others as negative way. Maybe this is the improvement which you can look for. So that's the context, that's the story. So let's look into the more details on the elements of user stories. Everyone knows and everyone understands, but let me set a context that we are all working in today's world of IT, in specific, uh, on the project, and others also on the non-IT side, those who are there will be or are working and were working on projects. So what is a project? A project is a temporary endeavor designed to produce a unique product, service, or a result with a defined beginning and end date. That is what we call a project. Every project, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Every project brings change. Every project brings change because change is the only constant, and projects are the enablers of change. Projects are enablers of change, and that is where it is a temporary endeavor produced to design, produced to have a unique product, service, or a result with a defined beginning and end date. Life is also a project. Let me tell you that. It is a temporary endeavor. You know your beginning date, which is equal to your birth date, and I don't know my end date. Someone else knows the end date. So life is also a project. It's a temporary endeavor, brings people together. Another important characteristics which if I have to highlight it here, is that project brings change. Life is also undergoes plenty of changes at every moment, every second, every phase of life. Similarly, project, whether it is an IT project, whether it is an infrastructure project, manufacturing project, Shika coming from production background, that kind of a project, every project brings change. Every project is temporary in nature. Nothing is permanent. So similarly, project is also not a permanent. The moment it becomes permanent, it becomes an operational in nature. That's why project is temporary in nature. Every project is unique in nature. Every project brings people together, cross-functional. And the most important thing, every project brings uncertainty. What we call in the PMBOK knowledge, risk. So every project has got 5 characteristics. You take any project on planet Earth, simple, average, complex, manufacturing, oil and gas, road, infrastructure, IT project, cloud project, migration project, transformation project, digital transformation project, any project you bring in, you will always see five important characteristics: change, temporary, unique, cross-functional, and uncertainty. With that background, and every project will have whichever project, whichever type of project, however small, complex, average, large, a rocket launching project, Chandrayaan project, submarine project, manufacturing project, infrastructure project, cloud project, you will always see five important phases of project management life cycle, what we call initiation, planning, execution, check, control, close. What I've abbreviated as IPCC. PMBOK, PMP talks about this in detail in the first two or three chapters. If you open the PMBOK, you will see the first two, three chapters talking about IPCC: initiation, planning, execution, check, control, close. That is what the project management life cycle is, and the characteristics we have already seen is change, temporary, unique, cross-functional, uncertainty. With that background, and every project, the third important aspect, or I would say third important attribute of a project, is that every project has got 7 aspects to be looked into. Those 7 aspects are time frame, scope, cost, benefit, quality, risk, and resources. Prince 2 talks about first 6 aspects, while PMP from PMI US talks about resources at the 7th constraint, or the 7th aspect of the project. Every project need to have a time frame. Every project need to have a scope. Every project need to have cost. Every project need to have benefits and benefit realization. The fifth is the quality. The sixth one is risk. And the seventh one is resources. You take any type of project, any industry, vertical, horizontal, whatever these jargons are there in the industry moving around, you will always see 7 aspects of the project which needs to be monitored, managed, controlled. And that is where 7 aspects comes into place. And from the agile scrum perspective, the topic which we are going to look at in the user stories elements, you will see execution as the important aspect, where from an execution standpoint, agile scrum fits in here. The scrum methodology fits in here, and we were going to see in detail the elements of user stories. Any questions, participant, before I move to the next details and of the elements of user stories? Any questions? I hope I am audible. I hope I am
Yes.
audible.
No questions as such right now. So
Okay, no worries.
I
Let
will
me.
request all the attendees to post questions within 2 minutes. We will give 2 minutes so that they can post
No
their
worries.
questions.
Okay, so that's on the project management. I wanted to set the context that how agile scrum in the IT world, especially. Let me also here add more things. Agile scrum or agility, the best practices of agile, especially the best practice of scrum, because scrum is a methodology, agile is a philosophy. Okay, the best practices of scrum, I repeat, underline the word scrum, can also be implemented, used in non-IT world. I have seen people using the best practices of scrum in non-IT world. Sales people, HR people, manufacturing people also use scrum best practices in their own day-to-day life. Daily stand-up, if I have to give a very, very common example, very, very beneficial way of using the best practices of scrum is daily stand-up. Everyone, I hope, have heard the term called daily stand-up. Daily stand-up is a meeting, is a talk, it is a meeting point, collaboration point for 15 minutes, where the team, whether you are an HR team, whether you are a manufacturing team, whether you are an IT team, whether you are infrastructure team, whether you are a finance team, accounts team, sales team, marketing team, whichever function in an enterprise you are working, every day in the morning predefined time, or the evening or afternoon, whichever is suited to the people or of the function, you meet for 15 minutes and discuss about the day's plan, the previous day work, and any impediments, any issues which you are facing. If you are having such issues, impediments, risks which you have encountered, or difficulties which you encounter, if you want to put forward to the teammates, to your fellow colleagues, that is the forum what we call daily stand up. So this is the best practice I have seen people following, whether it is an HR function, or an admin, or finance, or sales, or legal, or marketing, or any function. Daily stand up is most widely used best practice. The second best practice used is my next 10 days, my next 5 days, my next month plan, which I'm going to work. That is what we call in Scrum jargon, what we call backlog. People use it also in a non-IT project, the backlog planning, backlog grooming. They may not know the word, they may not know this practice, but they plan the things for next 15 days, they plan the things for next 10 days, they plan for next 1 month. And this planning, which is time boxed, of 10 days, 15 days, 1 month, max 1 month, ideally speaking, is what we call a sprint. This is what we call sprint. And within the sprint, then you have the requirements coming in. That's the next topic of the yeah, I'm coming to, I will come to that. So that is where the requirements comes into place. You time box that requirement, you put that time boxed, but what we call sprint, and the requirements understanding commences from there. You dissect the requirement, you understand the requirement, and you start developing, executing those requirements. Execution from an IT world, from an IT context standpoint, is what we call design, development, testing. From a finance standpoint, execution may be putting the whatever you have planned is into action. That is what we call execution. That is what we call execution. So from a finance standpoint, or Shika coming in from manufacturing standpoint, putting the requirements into action is designing the machines, designing the manufacturing parts, designing the manufacturing process, and developing the manufacturing process, or implementing that process what you have designed, documented, reviewed, approved, and putting into action. That time box where that you will do it, accomplish this in 10 days time, in 1 month's time, in 15 days time. That is what we call execution. Shika and others who are there on this call, who are from a non-IT world, you are also using the best practices of Scrum in your day-to-day life. That is what I wanted to highlight. Understood? And from an execution standpoint, from an IT world standpoint, we have different life cycles of execution coming in. There is a difference between PMLC and SDLC. Project Management Life Cycle, PMLC, is IPCC. Initiation, planning, check, control, close is what we call IPCC, which is Project Management Life Cycle. We have SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle, which is from the execution standpoint. How will you develop the software which you are creating for the usage of internal world, external world, internal users, external users? So that is what we call phases of SDLC, and there are various methodologies of 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 SDLC: waterfall, iterative, RUP, Agile Scrum, DSDM, extreme programming, so and so forth. But if you look at it from a generic standpoint, every type of this SDLC, every type of this SDLC, software development lifecycle methodology, DSDM, Agile Scrum, Iterative, Spiral, Waterfall, you will always see the elements of software development lifecycle, which is requirement analysis, system design, implementation, coding, so on and so forth. You will always see these elements. The variant or the impact or the usage of requirement analysis, system design may vary from methodology to methodology, but the intent or the phases would still remain the same. You start with requirement and you go until implementation and then go live. Understood, participants? Any questions? The intent, the intensity, the length of these phases or stages may vary, but it will always be there, and there. Any questions?
No questions as such right now.
Okay,
So we
let's move to
can,
the next
yes.
important aspect, and that is where, from an IT world, if I have to talk on Agile Scrum, it started in 1986 somewhere in Japan, and that is where the Kaizen is the founder, or it's the beginning of Agile Scrum methodology. Agile Scrum is a methodology. Agile is a philosophy. And somewhere in 2001, the manifesto of Agile was established, and there are 12 principles which we will see here. I think it's here somewhere. Yeah, there are the 12 principles of Agile Scrum or Agile Manifesto which were established. Is to have, first is customer satisfaction. Second one is welcoming change, because change is the only constant. Change is inevitable. Change cannot be avoided. You need to have change. So welcoming the change. Working software is most important. Fourth one, close and daily cooperation between business people and developers. That's why in Agile Scrum, in Scrum, we talk to business, we talk to users, we talk to sponsors, stakeholders on regular basis. Every 15 days, sorry, every 10th day of the sprint, usually we talk to the stakeholders and we demonstrate the working software to them, that this is how the software is going to look, this is how going to be used, this is what we have done, are you in agreement or not, can we proceed to next sprint, yes, no, so and so forth. So that's why daily close cooperation with stakeholders, and these practices, these principles, what are principles? These are the best practices one can follow, is can be used even non-IT world. It is not necessary that is, according to me, according to my understanding, that is limited only to IT world. No, you can use the best practices of Scrum, the principles of Agile, even in a non-IT world. It's, you have to adapt to the philosophy, you have to adapt to the methodology of Scrum. I repeat, Agile is a philosophy. Scrum is a methodology. You adopt philosophy and you tune your life. That is what, in a non I would say non IT world or non business world, if I have to compare it, you adopt the philosophy of life from Bhagavad Gita and you implement the philosophy of life in your life. Similarly, here you adopt the agile philosophy and you implement via Scrum as a methodology. The fifth, projects are built around motivated individuals who should be trusted. Trust is the most important aspect of agile. Face-to-face conversation, working software to measure the progress, sustainable development able to maintain constant pace, continuous attention to technical excellence and good design, simplicity, self-organizing teams, and regular adaptation to changing circumstances, because change is the only constant. Change is inevitable. You cannot avoid change. And when the changes are happening, to your requirements, to your needs. It has to be adopted, adjusted, accepted, impacted, used by the software people, IT people, IT projects people. They need to embrace change easily, adaptably, and welcoming it. Agile Scrum values, it focus, you need to have a focus, you need to have courage, openness, commitment, and respect the team members. These are the five values of Scrum. Some of the important, I would say, characteristics or artifacts which are there in Agile Scrum is backlog, cross-functional team, continuous integration, iterative incremental development, pair programming, so on and so forth. I'm not going to details of it because we have to see other interesting aspect on the elements of user stories. Before I touch on the topic of elements of user stories, requirements management, understanding the needs of the customer, user, stakeholder, sponsor, internal users, external users is most important. That is where requirements management is utmost important. You need to understand the requirements. You need to document the requirements. You may document in form of a system requirement specification. You may document in terms of functional requirement specification. You may document in form of a BRD, business requirement definition document. But it needs to be documented, it needs to be elicited, it needs to be gathered, understand the impact of it, and prioritize the requirements in terms of what we call product backlog, release backlog, sprint backlog. You can see three important abbreviations here: PBL, RBL, and SBL. Okay, product backlog, release backlog, and sprint backlog. So you need to prioritize the requirements. And prioritization, when you do, you need to dissect these requirements in terms of what we call user stories. What we call user stories. User stories are sub requirements, subset to the requirement, subset to the main requirement, subset to the user needs, but a user story which are micro level needs or understanding of the customer needs. That is what we call user story. We will see those details in just a short while from now. Requirements need to be managed through a change management process. You need to have a change management process to accept the requirement. It cannot be accepted as is. It has to be evaluated, what we call IAC: identify, assess, control. You may disagree with the requirement, you may defer the requirement, you may accept the requirement, but it has to be evaluated when the requirement is changing in the terms through a change management process. Requirements need to be validated and verified. And verification and validation is nothing but what we call today's world, or in a common vocabulary, what we call testing. Testing. You may do testing is not limited only to IT world. Manufacturing testing plays a very pivotal role, what we call inspection. Correct? Shika, you are from manufacturing. So inspection, testing is a very important role. So you validate through inspection the specification given for the motor, for the pipe which you have laid down, or the pipeline which you have erected, supplying the oil from the refinery to the petrol pump, for example. So that inspection need to happen, the testing need to happen, and to see whether the oil is flowing at the required speed from the refinery to the petrol pump, covering the end mile. So that is what we call testing and inspection. Inspection in the IT world is nothing but what we call audit. When you do a sampling and do the inspection, that is nothing but audit, because you cannot test everything. So you pick up the sample and verify it. That is what we call audit. In a normal word, it is known as inspection, or what we call review. It depends upon the scope. We're not going to the details of it, but these are the important, I would say, terms used for validation and verification: inspection, audit, testing, so on and so forth. So why do we perform requirements management? There is a need, there is a benefit which accrues when you do a requirements management. When you understand the stakeholders' needs, it reduces cost, rework, enhance product quality, improve communication and collaboration, better project scope in control. You can understand the boundary of the scope. When you define the scope based on the requirements understanding, you increase stakeholder satisfaction, because when you interact, interface, talk to the stakeholders, users, internal users, external users, internal departments, external world, requirements coming through a compliance, you increase the stakeholder satisfaction. Effective risk management, you try to minimize the change, alteration, altercations, difference of opinion, you minimize that. Greater traceability, timely delivery, and enables to create clear direction and focus for the project team. When you know the requirement, when you know the path, your execution, you are running the or you're driving the car becomes easy, because you know the path. If you don't know the path, you have to ask multiple times, alter the path, rather than if you have the clear backlog defined, product backlog defined, release backlog defined, sprint backlog defined, you know your path, and you can put your speed accordingly and work and achieve your goal. One of the important aspect of requirements management is user journey. User journey is a very important thing when you elicit, prepare, understand, document the requirements from stakeholders. In a product development scenario, requirements management, putting the whole requirement of product development in a product backlog is utmost important, and that is where you can see, or you can use a technique or of user journey elicitation, user journey. You can document it, that how the journey, right from the, if you look at it from an Amazon standpoint, a cart or an e-commerce standpoint, how the product will get used by the customer, which kind of stages a customer will go through, that kind of elicitation of customer using the end product, how will he will travel in selection of the product. If you have to depict it, the best way to depict is user journey. You can elicit this, you can document it, and from that user journey, you put the user flow in place, where you will see that how when a customer or a prospect is going to use the product, how he will move to different screens. We have not yet developed the screens, we have not yet designed the screen, but you need to put that user flow in place, and you will see a wonderful impact of that, that you have a very solid requirement documented. Doesn't mean that you don't accept the change, but when you do this, it becomes easy for you to understand user needs. Clear? Any questions, participants? Any questions?
Yes, there is one question from Chandra Sharma. She's asking, what would we do if a team consistently fails to complete all planned work in a sprint?
Can you repeat the question?
What would we do if a team consistently fails to complete all planned work in a sprint?
Very, Very good question. If team fails to deliver consistently the planned work, there is a remedial measure is given by Scrum ceremony or Scrum based practices sprint retro. Understand why teams or team is failing to deliver the committed user stories, committed velocity, committed commitment of delivery, why they are failing. And as a scrum master, if you're acting as a role, performing a role of a scrum master, facilitate why this is happening and try to do a corrective preventive action, what we call kappa, and see can this be changed or not, or is the requirement not correctly coming in. Is requirement, if requirements is correctly given, understood by the developers and development community, then is the design somewhere going wrong, or is the testing finding out many bugs, issues, errors, or is the code quality of poor in nature, or can we use in the today's world fantastic, I would say, enabler, fantastic enabler, everyone is talking about it, every seminar, every webinar talks about is AI ML. Can we use enablers like code AI or a Gen AI and generate the code which is more efficient, near to matching the requirement or optimal in nature, few more tweaking to the generated code, and my commitment is still respected, executed, delivered. I hope that answers your question.
There is one more question from the same person. It is Chandra again. She's asking, please explain point number 10, simplicity with an example related to software industry.
Point number 10. Which point?
That requirements management, I think in that there is one point number 10.
Point number 10. I did not see any 10.
Okay, simplicity with an example related to software industry. Yeah, in this one, I think so. Yes,
Simply
simple.
the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is okay, okay. I need to think of. I cannot immediately give you the answer. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer at this point of time. I need to think it over. You can put it in the chat on my LinkedIn profile. I will definitely answer.
Yeah, Chandra says thank you, no problem. You can proceed.
So that's on requirements management. There comes the important topic of today, user journey and user story. Okay. So before I go into the deep of it, any more questions?
No questions as such. Yeah, I think we can proceed.
Okay. Let me know the time check, because I am not having a watch today to look at the time.
Yeah, it's 8:39 right now.
Okay, no worries. So a user journey maps end-to-end experience a user has with a product or a service, including their goals, thoughts, emotions across various touch points. That is what we call user journey. While a user story is a short user-centric statement, what describes a specific task from a particular user's perspective. So example of a user story is, it has to have what it is, it has to have typical format of user stories. As a user, I want to achieve some goal, so that I can, the reason of achieving that goal. So as a user, we will see those example. As a customer, I want to easily compare features between the car models, so that I can choose the best one, for my needs. That is how you write a user story. Anyway, so coming back, user journey is at high level, then comes user flow, and then comes a user story. So we are going to see in detail the third important element in a product development life cycle. Underline the word product development life cycle, or any enhancement happening to the product, or IT project using agile scrum, or any development which is following agile scrum as a methodology. You will need to have, you need to have user story. And we are going to see the details of user story in how the important elements, how they are organized, so on and so forth. So let's look at user stories in detail. Every user story follows certain hierarchy of, in a specific picture given to you. Every user story need to be linked to a feature. A feature need to be linked to a pick. Every epic need to be linked to a theme or a goal or a what we call objective. Usually you will follow this hierarchy. If you are using Azure DevOps as a tool from Microsoft, you will see a feature getting used as the third stage or the third uh, in the hierarchy. If you are using Jira, you will not see feature as the element of user story. Okay, you will see theme, a pick, user story. Every user story need to have subtask, that how you are going to achieve the user story. What are the steps which you are going to follow to achieve the user story? That is what we call task 1, task 2, task 3, so on and so forth. So it, if you look at the flow, it moves top down. You have the goals which is put into the place, or into in front of you through a theme or goals, and it percolates down up to the task which is your technical task. So you achieve your goals through this journey of themes, goals, epic, features, user story, task 1, task 2, so on and so forth. This is the hierarchy or a structure of a user story. Jira wonderfully puts this in place. You may not use theme in your enterprise. It is, these are all optional. It's not that it is mandatory that you should have a peak, you should have feature, you should have theme. If you are not having it, you can still create a user story. But ideally speaking, it is recommended that you link user story to feature, to a peak, to theme, or to a goal, so that traceability, understanding of functionality need is achieved. That why are you developing this user story? Understanding of this why by the development team is utmost important. It gives lot of, I would say, benefit to the development if they, once they understand the why part. That why are you developing this user story? What is the benefit this user story is going to give? What is the benefit it is going to give to the end user, to the stakeholder? And we will see that how this benefit, or the, or what we call the value to the user story is achieved. Okay, so this is the usual hierarchy. You have a strategic goal getting translated up to technical task. So you have a theme, you have a epic, you have a user story, you have a task 1, 2, 3. That is how it is organized. So if I have to explain theme, the first element of a user story, then it establishes a connection between the strategy and the work. helping you to prioritize, deliver the most value to customer and organization. Okay. Example of a theme is introducing a track or introducing a tracking enhancement to our cycling app. You want to add this goal, and that where you can put this theme called introducing tracking enhancement to our cycling app. This is the goal, this is the objective you want to achieve. If that is to be achieved, you will translate that objective into a what we call a peak, and you will see enhance the cycling app GPS tracking functionality. That requirement at high level, that goal, you have translated into a peak, what we call, and with an example, enhance the cycling app GPS tracking functionality. So you converted that goal into a peak. So what is an APIC? APIC provides organization between broader themes and individual user stories. So you may not have feature, but you may at the same time you may have APIC linked to a user story. A user story is a single request, while APIC is a group of user stories. Initiative is a group of APIC. Theme is a organization goal. Some Agile Scrum tools also have another level between APIC and theme is what we call initiative. Initiative is group of APICs put together, group of I would say functionality at the broader level put together is also termed as initiative, and above initiative you have theme. So it depends upon your product development team, how they want to organize it, your enterprise best practices. But in in summary, this is the hierarchy of a user story. Theme, APIC, features, user story, and every user story should have at least one task or many tasks, preferably 3, 4 max. Between 4 and 6 is good enough to have a user story manageable, deliverable, testable in a given sprint. Any questions, participants?
Yes, we have one question from Vivek Chaudhary. He's asking, can it consider similar as the lessons learned? Though the lesson learns are done once the project completes, while user stories are continuous process during the course of assignment. So is my
Lesson,
understanding is correct?
no, lesson learned and user stories are totally two different things. User stories are requirements, functionality to be developed, functionality to be delivered, functionality to be executed, functionality to be satisfied, functionality to be used. That is user story. Lessons learned is a post-mortem of using the user story, and if there are gaps in delivering or delivered user stories, you from your lessons learned you improve that in my next user stories bunch, what we call a backlog. How do I improve these user stories delivery, what things were missing, so and so forth. So you cannot compare. It is like comparing apple and orange, both are distinct in nature. So you are mixing two unrelated elements of user story. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's it. I think one more question, if you want to take, this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
from
please.
from Chintan Khatalia. He's asking, in a manufacturing environment, say a digital transformation project, who are the users, the internal stakeholders?
In a digital transformation project, in a manufacturing nature, you have, it depends upon the scope of digital transformation. If you are doing a digital transformation for your enterprise, you are converting your paperwork to a digitization, and that paperwork is originating, getting consumed and destroyed. When I say destroy means coming to end of that paper within the enterprise boundary, then it is an internal user. The digital transformation will be limited only to the internal stakeholders of an enterprise. But if the paper is getting used by external users, then the scope and the impact of digital transformation is not only limited to internal but also external. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Chintan says thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So let's move. So what is
Yeah.
the yeah? So that I was coming back to theme. Theme establishes connection between your strategy and the work. So and the example given is introduce tracking enhancements to our cycling app. That's the goal which you want to achieve, and that goal is achieved through a peak by enhancing cycling app GPS tracking functionality. That is what we call a peak. And every peak will have will have will have multiple user stories. Will have multiple user stories. But before I go into the user stories, there is something called as features. Features is optional in most of the time, most of the cases, most of the product development organization. You will always see theme, iteration, epic, user stories, and user story task. Feature may be there as part of the user story elicitation, user story linking user story to features. But if you if you want to further subgroup between epic and user story, you have something called as feature refers to certain functionality or a service that satisfies stakeholders needs. Each feature must outline criteria involved and offer specific business value. Functional components of a product that support specific use cases. So it depends upon your product, it depends upon product to product development organization. But hierarchy is where feature comes between a peak and user story. The fourth aspect of a user story or element is user story itself, consisting of one or more sentences in everyday or a business language of the end user or user of a system that capture what user does and needs to do as part of his or her job. So that is where a user story comes. Description consisting of one or more sentences, maximum 2 or 3 sentences, describes user need, user requirement at the micro level, diluting it, dissecting it from a macro level to micro level is a user story. You dilute it. When I say dilute, it means not digressing it. Diluting it means understanding it and dissecting it, dividing it into a micro level. That need is user story. So, example of a user story, I have given multiple. Yeah, here it is. Can you see my screen? As a type of user, I want to perform certain tasks so that I can achieve some goal. That is how a user story needs to be written. So, as a cyclist, I want to track my ride on Google Maps so that I can record my distance and follow directions at the same time. This is the requirement you have dissected from an epic which says, one second, which says I want to have a GPS tracking. Okay, so that is from there you dissected to one user story which says a cyclist, as a user, I want to track my ride on Google Maps so that I can record my distance and follow directions at the same time. Clear? So that is example of a user story. A user story defines a discrete product function or a benefit that creates new value for business customers. Ideally, we should be able to complete a user story within a single sprint. A user stories are uh, essentially the same as product features, but rewritten with the user's perspective. The intent is to convey how users will experience the new functionality and how it will benefit them. That is the definition of a user story. As a user, I want to search my new customers by their first and last name. Another example of a user story. As a non-administrative user, I want to modify my own schedules, but not the schedules of other users. As a mobile application tester, I want to test my test cases and report results to my management. As an IT professional, I have written this user story that as a mobile application tester, I want to test my test cases and report results to my management. So you need to have a structure: who, what, why. You can see the structure here. As a role, I want action, what you need to do and why you need to do. And when you do a why, that is where you need to, what you want to achieve, the goal. And that goal achievement is then verified, checked through what we call acceptance criteria. We will see all that in short while from now. So a user story captures who, what, why behind an item of agile development work. Who, what, why. 3 W's. Example: as a cyclist, I want to follow my friend's cycling route so that I can join them on rides. Another way of writing user story, very important. Some people follow the second one: given that, when, then. Personally, I follow the first one. As a user, I have never tried using the second one, given that kind of sentence construct or a user story type. So I tried to, I always use the first one because that found, for me, that found to be more easy to write. So hence I followed the first one. Given that some context, when some action is carried out, then a set of observable outcomes should occur. Example: given that the cyclists want to ride with the friends, when they check the map view, then the routes of these other cyclists in their social network should be visible. Which one you find easy to write? Can anyone tell me? First one or the second one?
Yes, please write in the chat box which option is. Sanjeet Khan says first one.
First one. Okay.
Varun says first one.
Correct.
Rajat Sahu also says first one.
First one.
Trupti, Renu, Prathamesh, Chiranjeevi, Devi Dasan, Randeep Roy, Chetan Kumar, Neeraj Mal. Everybody is telling first one.
First one. Correct. Because that is more easy. But
Chintan
honestly
Ghosh,
speaking,
Chintan Ghosh says it is second.
okay. I would say uh, second one. Second one from a user standpoint. Okay, because agile is all about user satisfaction, customer satisfaction. Second one would give more clarity, visibility to users. This is my, in fact, I write the first way, but from a user standpoint, second one is much better. Anyway,
Yeah, his name was Chintan Khatalia.
pardon?
Second option given by Chintan Khatalia.
Better, okay. So more examples is on the user story, because this is the foundation. This is the foundation of, if you are uh, working as a product owner, then you must know the product life cycle, the important elements, like what is theme means, iteration means, epic means, features means, user story means. If you're working as a business analyst in any enterprise and moving towards agile scrum, or you're already working as a business analyst and moving as a product owner, then this important terminology, that's why I call elements of user stories. These are all elements of user stories. These are important terms, definitions. You must know, you must understand it practically. Internet gives you a lot of information, but it has to be correlated to your work with some examples, and that's why I've collaborated and presenting you this presentation, so that you understand with examples. So user story is the most, it is a foundation of of successful agile scrum execution methodology. If user stories are not elicited properly, the development team, scrum team, product team will not understand the requirements. And if they don't understand the requirements provided by the product owner, I used here one word somewhere, I saw it, product owner here. Can you see the word product owner? If the requirements, user stories are not given properly by product owner, because product owner is usually the in charge or responsible for writing these user stories, the requirement elicitation. And if requirements are not uh, I would say given in a required format of a user story, or even if given but not in the detail, then the whole design development and subsequent phases of software development life cycle, whether it is done in a time boxed way or in an iterative way or even in the waterfall, it will go wrong. It will go wrong. Hence, requirement understanding, requirement elicitation, requirement needs understanding, documenting it, explaining to people that this is what is solicited, required by users, whether it is internal or external, is utmost important, because that is the foundation. And if the foundation is weak, the building will collapse. No matter how much insurance you have taken, but it is going to collapse, it is going to have its devastating impact. So a few more examples of user story. From a agile scrum perspective, moving to safe, someone or people would have heard this particular methodology, which has emerged in last 6-7 years. Agile is past 10, 12, 15 years, while SAFE is there past 6-8 years. SAFE stands for Scaled Agile Framework, for a wider audience at the enterprise level. I'm not going in the details of it, someday, some other time. Is that you need to have especially the business value associated with a user story. The cost of delay need to be put forward. If you can compute that if the user story is not delivered, then what is the cost of a delay? If the functionality or functionalities grouped together in form of a feature to a peak, if that, if you can compute, derive the cost of delay, then that is to be put forward against the user story. So that is two additions to the normal user story is, from a safe standpoint, is user business value and cost of delay. Every user story, uh, I'm I'm jumping few slides. Every user story need to have need to have benefits likely to accrue. Okay, and if your user story elicitation can highlight that at the micro level, then if it cannot, then at least if it can be tagged to the feature or to a peak level, then it is very very valuable, useful, because then the development team understands the benefit which is likely to accrue to the user story, and it will definitely have a direct impact on the business outcome. Coming back to the structure of the user story, every user story should have a description, it should have an acceptance criteria, it should have a definition of done, it should have a task associated with user story, and every user story should have story points. These are the 5 important elements. In addition to APIC features, iteration, theme, a user story should have a description, acceptance criteria, definition of done, task, and story point or story points. This is a classic example of my live project. Uh, I finished it around 4 or 5 years back, for prestigious customer, and you can see here a user story, how uh, detailed it has been written. We had a template created and we set it down and we wrote a sample user story that got replicated across other user stories. So as a developer, data loading, this is a classic example of a data warehouse user story. Okay, the data lake getting created. One can write it in this way, user story, and each user story should have a acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is the is the is the is the acceptance of the user story, that from a user whether functionality delivered is done or not. That is what we call acceptance criteria. Every user story should have a definition of done. You can see on the first row, DOD, that is what we call definition of done, that if user story need to be completed, what it needs to do, it should have a documentation, it should have a code review, it should be unit tested, it should meet the acceptance criteria. All this, when it is done, tick 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 tick, that means a user story is done. That is what we call definition of done, DOD. You can say, my definition of done is development complete, tested, accepted. That is also a DOD. It depends upon enterprise to enterprise what you want to define as your definition of done. Then you have every user story, as I said, need to have a task. So you have task 1, task 2, task 3, and you have a user story which is having 5 points. Every story usually will equate to 6 hours of work. Every user story usually, underline the word usually, will equate to 6 hours of work. 2 hours are discounted, subtracted, because of email exchanges need to happen with the collaboration happening, daily meetings, other contingency, unplanned work, so and so forth. So out of 8 hours of work, 2 hours are discounted. So for a given story to be developed, if the story point is 5, That means it will take 30 hours. 5 into 6 equal to 30 hours it will take to complete a user story. Usually that is how a productivity to a user story point is applied. Acceptance criteria, another important element of a user story. A set of predefined, clear, testable conditions that must meet for a user story to be considered complete and successful. That is what we call acceptance criteria. Testable conditions. Okay, that is what we call acceptance criteria. Example, I have given here 3 examples. As a customer, I want to search product by name to find certain items easily. I want to search by name. If I am on Amazon.in on the Amazon website, so the search function should return results that exactly matches the entered product name. The search function should also return results that partially match entered product name. This is how the acceptance criteria is defined, written in the user story. Participants, please read these examples. I'm reading one. I will leave it to you for 2 seconds on this slide to read the remaining 2. The third acceptance criteria is search results should displayed clearly and organized, including the product name, image, and the price. And the fourth acceptance criteria is the search results page should allow pagination to display maximum 20 items per page. This is the acceptance criteria for the search of a product by name. Okay, so this is how you write down the acceptance criteria. Based on this acceptance criteria, you further drill down and create the test scenarios, test cases, test data. That if this is my acceptance need to be fulfilled, to be achieved, I will create scenarios based on this acceptance criteria, because this is the goal I want to achieve. So I will have test scenarios, and each scenario will have test cases associated with that test scenario, and each test cases will have a test data. And when you amalgamate this, you put into a tool called Jira, you put the test cases, you link that test cases to a user story, and you can correlate the quality of work of a user story to the test cases and see whether the user story is delivering quality output or not. Quality output in terms of how many bugs are identified when the test cases gets executed through CI/CD pipeline, what we call DevOps. Any questions, participants? So traceability, what we saw in the requirements management, comes into place. Traceability to the quality of code, traceability to the requirement, traceability to needs, traceability to features, epic, iteration, themes/goals. This is how you establish, create traceability. Any questions, participants?
No questions as of now, so we can proceed.
I'm leaving here for 2 seconds on this slide. Participants can read these other 2 examples on acceptance criteria. If you are through, then we'll go to the next. Done. Definition of done. DOD. It is a checklist which says if is the user story complete or not. Now, complete is a relative term. Complete for me is a user story which is development done, documentation done, testing done, acceptance criteria is fulfilled, it is tested and ready to be deployed, is definition of done. For some, it will be only development done and unit testing done. If that 2 are done, user story is complete, it can move to unit testing in it. System testing and user acceptance is not done. But I have defined my criteria of done as development done, unit testing is done. I can move that, and that is my definition of done. So it depends upon product to product development and environment to environment, project to project. So you can see here that a definition of done is having a checklist: coding, testing, non-functional requirement done, documentation, and product owner acceptance. If these 5 are done, my user story is complete. DOD, definition of done, completed. That is what we call DOD. And more details given on definition of done. Definition of ready, DOR. Definition of ready implies that stories have to be immediately actionable. In this case, definition of ready is story need to be elicited, story need to be written down, story need to be prioritized, story need to be given story points. That is where the story is complete to commence the design and development. That is what we call definition of ready, DOR. That's what I said earlier. Elicitation of requirements is very, very important. Ready stories have to be testable, clear, and most important, actionable. This is I picked up from LinkedIn. I saw this diagram or this picture very well depicted. So definition of ready is before a story enters a sprint, it needs to be clear, actionable, and achievable. Definition of done: once work is complete, the DOD act as a quality checkpoint. It ensures that every deliverable meets agreed upon standards. That is what we call definition of done. Writing effective user stories, another synopsis, a recap. So it should have as a customer, I want to track my order status. So you need to have 3 W's, what I told you earlier. Various types of user stories: functional user stories, non-functional user stories, persona-based user stories, and spike user stories. Non-functional and spike user stories are technical in nature, especially spike user stories where you want to do some R&D, some research and development. You want to understand that how this particular new language or a new platform is going to work or to be used later on, integrated with my web portal or my digital transformation project, but I don't know how it is going to work. So how will you identify? The proof of concept, POC, what we call, is nothing but spike stories. So type spike stories are 10 days time box stories. You don't know what is acceptance criteria, you don't know definition of done, but some work needs to happen, and you say, okay, here is the architect, please do this research and development. I'm giving you 10 days, come out with your integration report, whether in my digital transformation project, whether the CRM from Microsoft can be integrated for or not. So I'm just giving one example. This is a very high level requirement, but whatever it occurred to me, I'm just telling you. So that is how these spike stories comes out. Investigate the feasibility of implementing chatbot for a customer support. That is what we call example of a spike stories, more of an R&D nature. Non-functional requirements user stories, non uh, business focused yet important. As a system, I want to implement a caching layer for user data so that application load time is reduced by 50%. Okay. In order to achieve this, you may write a spike stories or a spike story that if I want to achieve 50%, I need to do some POC, proof of concept, R&D, some caching mechanism need to be used, some algorithms need to be checked or not. All that when you do a research, before that research is translated into actual development, that is where spike stories comes into place. So similarly, in a manufacturing unit, if I have to correlate some R&D work, manufacturing of some pumps, some R&D you are doing it, that would be your spike stories. Understood? And the last element of a user story is task. Okay, every user story should have at least one task. User story cannot be there without a task. Every user story should have at least one task. I'm not going to details of it. I stop here because it's going to be a lengthy topic. Shikha, maybe someday, some other time, on the user story estimation techniques. It's a big topic. Due to paucity of time, I stop here and we can take the questions and wrap up the session. Can't you are on mute? You are on mute.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you, Premal. There are not some questions, but there are comments where Varun Dikshit and some more people have given their opinions, which are matching with what you have presented. So yeah, that's it. I think there are no questions. So if anybody wants to post any question, please do so. We are still session 10 minutes is still there, so you can post your question. So meanwhile, Premal, I'll just want to share my question, which the answer I know, but it's still I just want to, because it is a very layman's language question is like, are user stories same as feedback forms?
No, user stories are not same as feedback forms. Feedback form is the post usage of the product. But in order to develop the product, you need a requirements elicitation. You need to understand the requirement. That is where user story comes into play. So both are distinct in nature. Someone asks, user story equal to lessons learned? No. Lessons learned and feedback form probably correlates each other. That input to lessons learned is my feedback form. Understood?
Yes, now I can I can understand that. I think on a broader sense, just because I'm not into that much IT projects, I think user stories are more of like requirements management, as I told, as you told this as you told in during the session. And right now there is one question from Chintan Gatalia. He's asking, is there an element of design thinking in user story?
Of course, that design thinking itself can be a non-functional requirement, or it can be a spike story, or it can be uh, uh, it, you need to do some uh, that would be at higher level. So you may devote or you may create some 3 4 5 user stories in and around design thinking. Design thinking will lead the output of design thinking would be what? If it is a creation of a web portal, then it will be a user interface, UI UX. Chintan Kataria,
Yes.
correct?
Okay, I think yes, Chintan. There are lots of Chintan says yes, thank you, and I think that is the end of the question and answer, and we are getting lots of compliments. So everybody is saying thank you, and it was a very informative session. So feedback forms have a link has been shared in the chat box. Please give your feedback. And thank you, Premal, for your very informative and enlightening session, because I thought user stories are just like feedback forms, but I think so. During the session, I came to know it is a bit opposite of what I was thinking. So this was a very interesting and informative session. So if you can unshare, I can share the certificate of appreciation. And Varun Agarwal is asking, can you please share the slides? So I will tell you that the recording of this session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, PMI Mumbai chapter. So you can refer this recording at any time after in a couple of days. So I'll just share my. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Or it's coming along?
Yeah, thank you.
Now it's coming. Is
Yeah.
there? Yeah, okay. So please accept a certificate of appreciation from our end as a small token of thanks for accepting our invitation to present today's PM Bit Stop session, and looking forward to invite you for presenting other interesting topics in coming months. And please, guys, please hold on. Premal Desai will be again presenting to us some technical topic in the month of November. So just tuned in. And also the attendees who have joined today's session, feedback form link for sharing your feedback is already shared. And please note that 1.5 PDUs will get credited automatically in your account for attending today's session. So thank you once again, Premal, for your informative session. And thank you to all the attendees who joined this session. So meet you in next session soon. Bye bye.
Cheers. Take care. Have a nice evening, and God bless you all. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.